This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure to order Jamie Glazov's new critically acclaimed jihadist Psychopath, how he is charming, seducing, and devouring us. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, I'm Brannon Howse for the Glazov Gang. In my new documentary, Siege, subtitled The Clear and Present Dangers Pushing America to the Brink of a Marxist Islamic Revolution, Civil War, World War III, and Globalism, I reveal very startling information the American people must know. This is an 8-hour and 22-minute documentary. And in this documentary, I examine how beginning largely in the 1930s, America was infiltrated from within. The objective was an information operation, or information warfare, to turn the hearts and minds of Americans against the principles and values that are at the very foundation of our constitutional republic. You can watch the trailer now at siegethemovie.com. As I said, it's 8 hours and 22 minutes, but you can watch 67 minutes of it absolutely free at siegethemovie.com. In this docu-movie, which is very fast-paced, it's like watching a Tom Clancy movie, but it's real. I interview former officers of the FBI, CIA, DHS, and KGB. I also featured 2 former Muslims and numerous experts on communism and national security, including a former staffer on the National Security Council for President Trump. This new docu-movie exposes the Marxist goal of replacing American values with global values of open borders, redistribution of wealth, population control, elimination of private property rights, and radical environmentalism that elevates nature over man. We also discuss that for socialist, neo-Marxist, and globalist values to be successfully inculcated into the worldview of Americans, the obstacle of strong families, communities, and institutions led by patriotic American men of courage and convictions must be destroyed. Thus, toxic masculinity, white privilege, and racism are used to shame patriotic Americans into surrendering their values and convictions in order to avoid being marginalized, characterized, and vilified. For generations, Americans did not fully fight the Marxist infiltration within our own nation, but instead allowed them every opportunity to carry out their long march through our institutions. In this docu-movie, I present vital American history that explains how it is that communism has spread across the world, surrounded America, and is now collapsing us from within. Since the end of World War II, America has not only increasingly surrendered to the Marxists at home, but willingly surrendered to them in Eastern Europe, China, North Korea, and Vietnam. The consequences of such surrender has led to America not only empowering our enemies, but in some cases, actually funding their regimes as they build 6th-generation warfare technology that America does not also possess at this time. The substitute for victory has led America to be viewed by our enemies as a nation of fools that can be counted upon to not fight to win, but to eagerly seek a compromise that almost always leaves our enemies advancing and America damaged and ever closer to demise. As I reveal in this docu-movie, Siege, America's track record since the end of World War II is why the communists knew they could fake the collapse of communism in 1989. Through this fake collapse of communism, the USSR was able to take financial advantage of the West and use our technology and our capitalism to rebuild their military and shore up their crumbling economy. Then they used Islamic terrorism to distract America from paying attention to them while their Islamic proxies wore down our military and drained our resources through the global war on terror. And if you don't think their plan has worked, all you have to do is look to the summer of 2018 when Russia and China carried out what some experts believe was the largest military exercise in world history, Vostok 18. Some of these same experts believe that not only was Russia and China practicing an attack on our critical infrastructure, but they were also practicing a nuclear strike on America with their 6th-generation warfare capability. In this new docu-movie, I feature a former KGB officer now living in the United States. He's warning Americans that Russia is the enemy of America. Russia is still a communist nation. They are aligned with all of our national enemies, and They have infiltrated America with KGB assets to undermine America. He will also tell you that since the 1930s, Russia has been funding and training global terrorists, including some of the most well-known Islamic terrorists on the face of the earth. Let me make this very clear. America's willing surrender and capitulation to the communists and Marxists has not gone unnoticed by our Islamic enemies. In fact, you can be sure the Marxists have trained the Islamic terror states and used them to de-Christianize the West, create chaos, and spread our military across the globe in our war on terror. The net result is that Americans are now rightfully tired of the high price in human and financial terms that these endless wars have cost our nation. The endless wars, with the troops spread across the globe, have increased our national debt and diverted resources that, should have been invested in updating and strengthening our military technology so that we might maintain peace through strength. Yes, President Trump is working to rectify the situation, but it could take years that we don't have. So make no mistake. The same surrender at home and abroad that America has suffered at the hands of the communists is now sadly being repeated with our Islamic enemies. But it gets worse. America's Marxist and Islamic enemies have formed an alliance known as the Red-Green Alliance. Now, folks, if we lose the siege of this Red-Green Alliance, America as we know it will be lost. Only if we awaken enough Americans to the clear and present dangers now facing America will we have any hope of remaining the land of the free. On June 19, 1962, the leader of the Communist Party and USSR was Nikita Khrushchev, and he foretold where America finds itself today. He declared, quote, "The United States will eventually fly the communist red flag. The American people will hoist it themselves," end quote. Well, as I reveal and show the footage in this documovie, numerous reports document that the red communist flag of China was raised over Philadelphia City Hall as well as Boston City Hall. In addition, many Americans have raised the communist red flag within their hearts. In fact, recently, some within the NBA were falling all over each other to race to a microphone and camera to praise communist China and to insult and ridicule those who spoke up for the young students in Hong Kong that want freedom of speech, of which they'll surely be deprived by the murderous regime of China. Many Americans, sadly, have bought the lie that communism died with the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Before he died, Lenin, he laid out his plan for how the communists would dominate the globe. He declared, quote, "First, we'll take Eastern Europe, then the masses of Asia, then we'll encircle the United States, which will be the last bastion of capitalism. We will not have to fight. It will fall like an overripe fruit into our hands," end quote. My friends, this is exactly what's happening. Right after World War II, America began to roll over to the communists, and we gave them Eastern Europe in the negotiations that ended World War II. Then, we didn't fight to win the Korean War or the Vietnam War. Thus, the deadly consequences from our nation's years of national security failures are now manifested in the threats we face from communist China, Russia, and even little North Korea. These communist nations threaten the very existence of America with advanced nuclear weapons, financial weapons, the infiltration of our critical infrastructure, and the brainwashing of our own people. Notice, I've really not even hardly mentioned the Islamic threat facing America. After we lost Eastern Europe to the communists, we then lost China to the communists. America abandoned China and allowed for the unopposed communist revolution of 1949 that saw a population of 700 million Chinese enslaved by communism. This incompetence by America's leaders led to the deaths of millions inside of China, but it also set up the communists in China to enslave the people of North Korea, the people of Vietnam, and to kill thousands of American soldiers in both the Korean War and the Vietnam War. General George Stratemeyer, the Air Force commander in Korea, he testified before a Senate committee. Quote, "We were required to lose the Korean War," end quote. Why on earth would this general make such a statement? Well, in part, John Stormer helps us understand when he writes, quote, "During the Korean War, the chain of command from the United Nations Security Council to General MacArthur was through the Undersecretary for Political and Security Council Affairs, Konstantin Zinchenko, a communist," end quote. Today, the United Nations is not only dominated by communist nations and sympathizers, but also by Islamic nations and sympathizers that make up the dangerous red-green axis that hates America and Israel. The only way the objectives of globalism can succeed there at the United Nations is if the Judeo-Christian worldview in the West is eliminated. For it is from this worldview that stems national sovereignty, the free market system, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, parental authority, and individual rights. One way to collapse and de-Christianize the West is to flood America with Islamic immigrants who have no interest in assimilation, but in actual elimination of America as a constitutional republic by demanding the honor and institution of Sharia. This commentary is only scratching the surface of the clear and present dangers facing America and the demise of our freedoms and liberties. So I'm going to ask you, please, visit siegethemovie.com, siegethemovie.com, where you can order a copy of Siege and watch 67 minutes for free of this fast-paced 8 hours and 22 minutes. Thank you for watching Siege the documovie. For the Globalism Gang, I'm Brannon Howse.